One of the biggest fan theories in the Seven Deadly Sins sequel manga was recently confirmed. Gawain, one of the 4 Knights of the Apocalypse and the current user of the power Sunshine, is the secret daughter of Escanor and Merlin. The clues were always there, from Gawain's ability to use a combination of Escanor's and Merlin's powers, to the very clothing that she wears, which are a mix of the clothing that Escanor and Merlin are known for wearing. But after years of speculation, the recent manga chapters finally revealed this mystery. And yet, there are still so many questions about what this means for the story and how any of this is even possible, so let's break it all down, right now. You guys know the drill. If you enjoy our 7 Deadly Sins and 4 Knights of the Apocalypse content and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now for that YouTube algorithm. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified when we publish another 7 Deadly Sins, 4 Knights of the Apocalypse video. Okay, so Gawain was the final Knight of the Apocalypse to actually be introduced in the story. And at first, all we knew about her came from that infamous prophecy about the 4 Knights. According to the prophecy, Gawain is the Knight of Famine, and she is described as a person who possesses gold-colored magic. This gold-colored magic is referred to as Dawn, but once we actually meet her and see her magic in action, we realize that she possesses what is essentially Sunshine, the divine grace that was originally possessed by Mael and then later inherited by Escanor. The interesting thing about the prophecy is that when we are first shown a silhouette of the infamous 4 Knights, Percival, Lancelot, and Tristan all look like older and more badass versions of their actual selves. However, the 4th Knight looks almost exactly like Escanor rather than Gawain. It's almost like Escanor was supposed to be the true Knight of Famine, but then something happened along the way, and the 4th Knight turned out to be Gawain. Once we finally meet Gawain, we quickly realize that the obvious reference to Escanor in the silhouette image was no random coincidence. It turns out that Gawain somehow inherited the power of Dawn, aka Sunshine, after the tragic death of Escanor in the original 7 Deadly Sins manga. Gawain also openly calls herself the Master of the Sun, and she uses a weapon called Sacred Sword Rita, which is a direct reference to Escanor's Divine Axe Rita. She also uses magic spells like Absolute Cancel to cancel out a perfect cube, and she can use advanced teleportation magic to instantly teleport from one spot to another. So from early on in the story, this seemed to suggest a clear connection between Gawain and Merlin, since we know that one of the only people in the world who could have taught her such spells was Merlin herself. Now, since we know that Merlin survived the end of the original manga, it isn't crazy to think that at some point Merlin had a daughter and that this daughter was Gawain. But for a long time we knew practically nothing about Gawain's backstory, other than the fact that she was apparently King Arthur's niece. This is definitely an interesting piece of information since Chaos-possessed Arthur is like the primary villain of the entire sequel, but it's not exactly a lot to go on. We later learned that Gawain is considered to be Arthur's niece because she was adopted by Arthur's brother Kay Pendragon, but to make things even more complicated, it turns out that Kay and Arthur are not actually related by blood. And of course Gawain is adopted, so she is not even related by blood to Kay either. So to make a long story short, Gawain is considered Arthur's niece, but there is no known blood connection between them. This might seem like a small thing, but it's actually important to keep in mind in a series like this, because in this world, your bloodline often determines what kind of powers and abilities you will end up possessing. All Gawain really knows about her origins is that she was raised by Kay Pendragon and 2 magical puppets. Gawain refers to these weird-looking puppets as Grandma and Grandpa, and apparently, it was these puppets who taught her everything she knows about magic. To make things even more confusing, for much of the early parts of the story, we were led to believe that Merlin was residing with Arthur in Camelot. Merlin is shown standing right beside Arthur and seemingly supporting what he's doing several times, but then finally in chapter 91 of the manga, it was revealed that this Merlin was actually a fake. Arthur is such a desperate simp that he forced a fairy to transform into Merlin and pretend to be her to make him feel better. Extreme cringe on Arthur's part, but I will say that this twist really shocked me when I first read the chapter, so it was definitely a memorable moment for me personally. The story of Gawain's secret origins really gets crazy about 100 chapters later. And this honestly changes everything that we thought we knew, not only about the sequel manga, but also about the ending of the original manga. First, in chapter 185, we are told that the small kingdom of Castellio, where Escanor is originally from, was destroyed in some sort of barbarian revolt 48 years ago. The entire royal family was executed, except for Escanor, who escaped earlier, and his older brother, Damon. Now, if you think back to the original series, Damon is the one who used to bully Escanor as a kid until Escanor's sunshine powers awakened, and he accidentally broke Damon's arm. It is then revealed that the real identity of Beltripe of the Four Evils is none other than Escanor's brother, Damon. However, Damon's mind is being manipulated and controlled by Arthur's chaos powers. We also learned that Damon has a daughter, but he seems to have completely forgotten her due to Arthur's mind manipulation. His daughter happens to be very determined to get her father back and to return his memories to him, and to achieve this goal she is prepared to do practically anything, including manipulate the minds of others. Now, the reveal that Beltripe was actually Escanor's brother was pretty interesting, but all of that completely pales in comparison to the insane reveal that we get in chapter 192. In this chapter, Gawain is finally confirmed to be the secret daughter of Escanor and Merlin, but that's not even the craziest part. As someone who expected this to be the case all along, I wasn't too surprised by this reveal, although it was still pretty freaking sudden and insane to have that confirmation after all of this time. The thing that really shocked me is the reveal that both Merlin and Escanor are still alive and have been around Gawain the whole time. Remember those two weird magical puppets that raised Gawain and taught her everything she knows about magic? Well, believe it or not, it turns out that these two are actually Merlin and Escanor in disguise. Or I guess they somehow became trapped inside these magical puppets. It is literally a disguise, but it doesn't appear to have been intentional. They did not want Gawain to know the truth about her parents, so they lied to her and told her to simply refer to them as Grandma and Grandpa. In chapter 192, we see Gawain's foster father, Kay Pendragon and Dubs the Giant, talking to the two magical puppets. Gawain is not here at this time, so as of the making of this video, she still doesn't know the truth. One of the puppets is a creepy wooden puppet with a dress and high heels, and the other is some sort of animal skeleton in a suit. Kay is seen telling the two puppets that they should tell Gawain the truth. After all, that is the duty of every parent. The skeleton puppet says, "I'm not sure how I could do it. For that matter, would she believe us when we look like this?" The wooden puppet adds, "She would be so disappointed in us, and herself too." Kay responds by saying, "Well, that's up to Gawain herself to decide, isn't it? But as her foster father, I can tell you one thing, Escanor, Merlin, she's just as strong as the both of you." That is how the big reveal happens, and the scene ends there, without any satisfying explanation of how Escanor survived, how he managed to father a daughter with Merlin, how the daughter ended up with Sunshine, and how Escanor and Merlin ended up as weird-looking magical puppets. That said, I am sure that the answers are coming soon, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because as soon as we get the explanations, I will make another video informing you about all of it and breaking it all down. Until a specific explanation is provided, all we can do is make some educated guesses. First, let's assume that Escanor really did die at the end of the original manga, and it wasn't some sort of bait and switch. I mean, he definitely appeared to die, and his death did feel final, but in a magical world like the world of the Seven Deadly Sins, where the magic system isn't always clear and logical, you just never know. Theoretically, Merlin could have already been pregnant with Escanor's child before Escanor's death. We always knew that Escanor was in love with her, and although Merlin was apparently in love with Meliodas, if some stuff happened between Escanor and Merlin off-screen, then Merlin could have been pregnant with Gawain at the time of the original manga's ending. There could also be some magical shenanigans going on here. Like, I don't know, Merlin might have gotten pregnant by some magical means when she kissed Escanor at the end or something along those lines. Since Merlin basically disappears after returning to Camelot with Arthur, she could have been pregnant and given birth during the time skip. She could also have raised Gawain in secret and taught her magic spells, so that part is not so crazy. This could even explain why Gawain ended up with Sunshine, since it's not too far-fetched to think that the child of Escanor himself would be deemed worthy of inheriting the power. Provided, of course, that Mael is cool with it and doesn't want the Divine Grace back, because it was originally his. But even if we assume all of this, none of that explains how Escanor ended up surviving, or how he and Merlin ended up trapped inside those weird magical puppets. Now, I'm gonna assume that Escanor's return isn't just some sort of Camelot fantasy shenanigans, since if Escanor returned because of Arthur's chaos power like so many others, there would presumably be no reason for him to be trapped inside a puppet. He would just appear as his normal self. The only issue is that he wouldn't be the real thing. My personal guess is that Escanor's soul really was somehow revived from the dead, and I assume that Merlin was the one who made it happen. But of course, the ability to just bring someone back from the dead is way too overpowered, so if it exists, it has to come at a great cost. My guess is that in order to bring Escanor back, Merlin had to sacrifice a lot, including her own body. She was able to bring Escanor's soul back, but in return both she and Escanor had to give up their bodies and their powers and become magical puppets. They were somehow able to transfer their powers to their daughter Gawain, and they were able to stay close to her and raise her alongside her foster father Kay, but they never told her the truth because they were ashamed of the state that they were in. They didn't want their daughter to see her parents, two members of the legendary 7 Deadly Sins, reduced to practically powerless puppets, and so they just kept her in the dark about her true origins. Nevertheless, Kay Pendragon himself has confirmed that Gawain is becoming just as strong as Merlin and Escanor, so I don't think that they will be able to keep the truth from her much longer. Gawain will learn the truth. We will get more details about how all of this happened and why, and when we do, I will make a video explaining it, so again, like and subscribe. Now here's my question for all of you. How do you think that Escanor came back to life, and how did he and Merlin end up as magical puppets? Do you like the fact that Escanor is back, at least in some form? Or do you think that this turn of events in the sequel cheapens his sacrifice in the original? Are we ever going to see Escanor and Merlin return in their real bodies and at full power again? Or will that be impossible now that Gawain has seemingly inherited their magical powers? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you're wondering about all the other kids of the 7 Deadly Sins besides Gawain, I made a video explaining all of them and their powers. Link is on screen and in the description. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like to let me know, and of course subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified when we drop another 7 Deadly Sins 4 Nights of the Apocalypse video. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys.